Well, welcome to the fun and mentals of real estate. We're back today. I am your host, Angela Dillmon with Keller Realty, Chesterfield. This is my wealth building partner.
I'm Glen Calvin with Gill Mortgage. Glad to be back. Yeah.
So what is our great question of the day today?
You got a good one. Give it to me.
It is, why is buying a home so stressful? Why is buying a home on one of the top 5 stressors?
It stresses
in
people
life?
out. It really
Isn't that
does.
incredible?
It does.
So,
I mean, there's a lot going on. It's a big decision. There's big numbers, but
yeah, and we like to liken this to a wedding.
it's the perfect analogy. I
It's
use
like
it all the
my
time
wedding.
now. It is, because a wedding is a joyous occasion, just
is.
like buying a home.
And yet it's so stressful.
It is.
You're
We've
like,
all
oh
been
my
there with the
gosh.
tears, the wringing your hands,
Oh
all
my
the
gosh.
decisions you got to make.
Right, so here's where we're at in our buyer series. In our buyer series, we are engaged.
We are. We're getting ready to march down the aisle.
We're
Not
engaged
quite.
because
Yes.
we have a contract. We've got an accepted contract, yahoo, between the buyer and the seller. And now it's time to do a myriad of things. And today we're going to talk about some loan snags. What can help you? What can hinder you, right? What are some of the top things that happen, the pitfalls, I guess,
Things that can
of
mess up that
loan
closing,
process. And then some of this can be you as the buyer. It can be like your fault.
Well,
And so
and
this
some
is
of it can
the
just be
things, like,
circumstances.
sometimes you have no idea how this all fits together. And sometimes you make some moves that you think you need to move and that seem logical, but they actually become a loan snag to you.
They do.
So Glenn is here and he's really going to help us try to avoid these loan snags.
Right, so just like a wedding where you got your maid of honor, your best man, you've got your mom, you've got a wedding planner if it's a big to-do.
Right.
You've got a team to help you, and that's what you need to rely on when you're buying a home. You've got the team. You've got not only your realtor and your lender, but
Now you have a contract or close specialist with our team. You have your lender, your loan officer, you have your title partner, you have your building inspector, you have your insurance man. So think of them as your maid of honor, your best man, your wedding party.
it's your little team.
Right? Your mom, your mother-in-law, right? And like you need all hands on deck, your best friend, right? So this is all hands on deck time. And so when you're applied for a loan, so you may already even be completely underwritten
Hopefully.
before.
That's what you
like
want. That's where you want to be.
applied and you gave Glenn all your paperwork and you're like,
He sent it to underwriting. We've got a loan approval.
You could still have a loan
you
snag even at this point in the process.
Because all that information has to be updated and checked. So some things
so
you
look, all right, tell me, what are some of the most common loan snags?
So we're going to look at your credit again. We're going to look for inquiries. So you want to make sure that you're not changing that situation. You're not adding a whole bunch of money to your credit cards. You're not going out into any new debt.
New debt. Okay, so Glenn, we were talking earlier, like you could go and you need a new appliance or something.
Right, you're buying a new house. You want washer and dryer.
90 days, same as cash.
Or no financing for 12 months. All kinds of stuff like that.
Can that hurt in the process?
Sure it can, because they're just deferring those payments. So a lender is still going to have to
count it against you.
Count that payment in part of your debt to income ratio. Is correct.
Right. So you have to have just the perfect debt to income ratio. In other words, the money that you have coming in versus the money you have going out. There's
it's part of the qualification process.
Yeah, there's not too much going out, and they're like, yes, for what you have coming in and what you have going out, you can afford this payment. That's this income to debt ratio, and so you can mess it up by going to get these 12 months same as cash, 90 days same as cash. Well, I don't have a payment for 12 months, and the lenders are like, yeah, we don't care. We're going to count it against you anyway.
I would say this, it's best to do that after closing, but I have seen times where people come to me and say, Glenn, I can only get this deal today.
Right.
And they're going to defer the payments. Just communicate with me. Maybe it's going to be fine, but we still have to add that into the credit report. We have to know that information.
Right, so you do have to check with your lender before you go opening new lines of credit. So don't open a new line of credit if you can help it. If you have to, talk to your lender first. All right.
Yes, communication
Here's
is key.
Here's another great one.
Yeah, don't quit your job.
Don't quit your job. Now,
don't get mad at your boss and
quit.
quit.
You would think that's logical, but it's really not, because we've had a lot of people quit their jobs in the middle of getting a loan, and they're like, well, I'm going to start this new job. And we're like, well, when are you going to start the new job?
Right, well,
and are you on
3 months,
probation on the new job?
Yes. Or another one where, Glenn, I got a great opportunity to make a bunch more money. I'm going to go from W-2 to 1099.
Oh,
that's a deal killer right there.
Okay, so a W-2 is, hey, you just get that paycheck,
right.
and they take your
You're
taxes
hourly,
out, right?
Right.
But if you go to self-employed status,
that's the 1099.
Now
we don't have any way to gauge what your income it really is, because
Right.
you're paid either by the job that you do,
Right.
or by the time you spend, or the amount of things that you do or have sold. And we have to have 12 to 24 months to gauge that. So that
prefer 24
can
months
mess
on
a deal
that.
up.
And that could be the same employer. I've seen this happen.
Yes,
Where
of course.
someone's at the employer and they want to move them and like, hey, I'm going to be a contract person at my
Right. And I'm making more money. It seems
and
so
I'm making
logical.
more money, but
Right.
there's no history. So if you're going to do that, please wait till after closing.
And
day.
you know what? We have to deal with the cards we're dealt, and sometimes we can't help that. I was downsized. I lost my job.
Right.
Please communicate that, because you're signing papers at closing saying the stuff you put on the application is true, and you don't want to be guilty of mortgage fraud. And most of the time, there's a way to work it out.
Yeah, most of the time
There is.
No,
Maybe
okay,
we can qualify that other income. Maybe we weren't counting some other income. Maybe
Right.
we get a cosigner.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another one. I'm going on maternity leave,
Yes.
or maybe I'm going to get a sabbatical.
Right.
Right? Does that hurt me?
So hurt isn't the right word. It affects you. So,
Right.
and we have to make sure that it doesn't affect you in a negative way. So again, communicating with the lender, documenting,
So if
writing
I go
letters.
on maternity leave,
You can still qualify for a loan on maternity leave.
okay, but let's just say my lender's only like paying me half. That's
So,
that's
right.
gonna like change my income to debt ratio.
It may or may not. If the lender's paying you half, but then you're going back at a certain date, and we can document that, it really is case
Document?
by case. It's
Okay.
definitely not a deal killer.
All
And if
right.
you're gonna have a baby, you're gonna have a baby. Buying a house, that's like the double whammy of stressors.
Yeah, you
But
got
we've
like
seen it.
2 of the top
Yes.
5.
We've
We
seen
don't
it
want
happen.
that.
Again, most of the time it gets worked out. But to deal with it at the last minute, a week before closing, 2 weeks, the sooner you can address these issues, the better.
Okay, so it's April. I just filed my taxes. I find out that I owe like $5,000. Does that affect me if I'm in
It
the
does,
loan
right?
process?
Especially if we're using your taxes to determine your income.
Right.
And there's owed taxes, we have to account for that. So you could work out a payment schedule with the IRS, that's fine. We just have to count that your debt to income ratio.
So I either have to pay it or work
Well,
out
even
a
if you're going to
payment
pay it, though,
plan.
we have to verify that you have those funds. So we verified that you needed funds for closing. Now we have to verify that you need funds
For
for
the
closing
taxes.
and to pay your taxes. But it goes the
Right.
other way too. A lot of people this time of year are using that tax refund, which we can as part of the down
Right,
payment.
and you can use it.
Right.
You just need to communicate. But if you owe, that's a whole nother story,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So what if I have a judgment against me, like the doggone cable company or something?
Right.
You know, they come up with a judgment or something, or
So hopefully that's
some
going.
kind of lien on
Yes,
my,
that's a
on
great
me.
point. So hopefully that's going to show up on the credit report, and when we did our pre-approval, we're going to address that then. But the title companies, they go and looked at CaseNet. They do a lot of research on the sellers and the
Okay.
buyers, and they make sure you don't have any of those judgments. So if you do, that's going to have to be dealt with again. We're either going to have that removed, because what can happen is that person who has a lien against you can put that onto the property once you buy it. So it makes it difficult to get title insurance. It makes it difficult for the property to pass from one owner to the other. So you
I
just have to
gotcha.
really be aware of that.
All right. So what if I'm negotiating during the negotiations of my contract, I end up getting a credit from the seller because something needs to be fixed. and
Again,
it's not
that
fixed.
happens all the time. That's probably not going to affect anything. We can put a seller credit on there. We're okay with that. But
Okay.
there are certain things that could, the lenders, we have to disclose, we have to disclose, we have to disclose. So
Right.
anytime there's something we call a change of circumstance, we have to disclose that, and the law says we have to give you time to review those changes.
Oh, so
So-
change could be going from like an FHA type, so a different loan
FHA to
type
conventional, right?
to a conventional. So different loan type is a change.
Locking in the interest rate, paying discount points, that's a
Okay.
change.
And then if I want to change my loan amount, I decide I want to put more down or less down.
Right.
Let's say I went in the contract saying I was going to put 20% down, and I only want to put 10 or 5% down because I decided I want to use that other money to make an improvement to the
that would be a
property or
change
buy
of
a
circumstance,
car.
that's right, and we have to
whatever it
disclose that.
is.
That's
Okay.
not all of them affect whether or not we have to delay the closing, but really you'd want to have the best thing to be everything set in stone, understood, locked in 7 days prior to closing. Certain circumstances may not affect it, but the safe bet would be to have everything done and make sure that you've signed the disclosures. We're so fortunate now that with the
Okay.
digital signatures, I would say 95% of what we do, we use the DocuSign where you can sign it right on your phone.
Okay, so disclosures happen really twice.
No,
really,
no,
when it
how-
comes to-
they could
so-
happen 100 times. Every
Yeah,
time
but at
something's
least
changed.
right when you get this contract and you get engaged,
Right.
and then we send the contract over to the title company. We send it to the lender, and they're like, okay, they get to start to work on it. You're gonna send out specific disclosures for that property with that property address on it, and you need to sign those right away. Really?
And I would say this, Angie, too. You need to review them. I'm not going to say you have to read every page of every paper, but understand and get with your lender. If your lender just says sign these, they don't really matter. You're dealing with the wrong person.
I see.
You need to understand what you're signing, and it's just basic stuff, in regards to the loan application, the credit report, flood insurance. There's a whole list of things that we're going to disclose, how we service the loan, all that. Understand them, sign them, make sure your lender has acknowledged that you signed them, and you're going to avoid these loan snags that we're talking about.
Okay, so then, so you've got all this stuff going on, and at the same time, I've got to get some insurance on the property too, and that can be a loan snag if I don't get the right kind.
Right.
So I get to choose. You get to choose. You get to choose your own homeowners.
You do.
It's not a problem. But what kind of coverage do I need to have?
So you want to make sure that it has replacement value coverage, which is a big deal. Most of the start is standardized, but as the insurance has jumped up a little in the last year or so, we look for ways to bring that cost down. You have to balance that and make sure that you're lined up with the lender. The most common one is that deductible. And really that deductible to me has a lot to do with the money that you have in reserve. So if you're buying a house with your last dime, you have to get paid, and we do this, and I still think it can happen, then keep that deductible low. Because you might not have the $1,000 or $2,000.
Right.
If you've got money in savings and you've got 6 months reserves, then you can lower that premium substantially by having the deductible a little bit higher.
So even that matters.
And it can be no more than deductible can be no more than 5% of the total amount of the coverage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And most good reputable insurance agents are going to know that. And I always say it's a two-sided coin with that insurance. It's not all just about the lower premium. You want a good company that's going to be around, that's going to be with you in case there is a claim.
Yeah, so he's kind of like the groomsman, where Glen's kind of like your best man at the wedding. I'm just saying.
Oh, it's a joyous occasion. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot, and it's very nerve-wracking because you're going into maybe a new payment. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower, and you're like, yay, But most of the time, people are moving up, buying their first home, that sort of thing. And
don't let these snags scare you, because your lender is going to talk to you about this and counsel you and communicate. And we talked about that going into debt. Well, let's just say it's a week before closing and my car breaks down and I can't get it fixed. And I have to buy a new car. That's fine. Just talk to your mortgage guy. Let's analyze where you are and make sure that the new payment that you're going to have doesn't put you out of the ratio with your income and your debts.
It's only fine if it doesn't put you out of the ratio, income to debt ratio, and disqualify you for the loan, because it can.
It definitely can. And I've had situations where we ask about an inquiry and they say, well, I bought a new car, and then boom, it's put, and now we can't get the loan done. I've actually had one had to go back to the dealer and trade it back in.
All right, so now you also are you're going to lock in an interest rate as well?
Yes, that's really important. So that interest rate needs to be locked in, because that's one of those change of circumstances that can delay the closing. So you want to make sure, to me, it's one less thing to worry about. Once I got that contract and it was in 30 to 60 days, you probably want to get that rate locked in.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that decision up to you. People get mad at me when the interest rates go up. They love me when they go down. I don't have any control.
Right.
What's going to happen is what's going to happen. But you need to get the rate locked in a timely manner and make sure that's not out there. And don't make an assumption that, oh, he sent me this paper and, oh, I just assumed we were locked in. Don't.
Right.
Communicate that clearly with the lender. Right. That's a big one.
That is a big one. And then there's going to be another set of disclosures just like 3 days before closing, at least.
No. Just only if there's changes. The 3 days before closing, we're going to send that closing disclosure.
Yeah,
so it's a one disclosure.
Yeah. It is a closure.
So we're going to send one a week ahead. That's going to be when we send the figures over to the title company. Then we send that final CD to you. And that all has to be finalized 3 days prior to closing.
Yes, you have to sign. So there's a lot to really pay attention to when you're doing this.
Yes.
Communication is the key.
Yes.
So the next thing Glen's going to do is he is going to order an appraisal, and we're going to talk about some of the appraisal snags and what happens at this stage in the game when the appraiser comes.
Perfect.
The appraisal comes out.
Looking forward to it.
All right. See you next week.
All right.